feminism is what we say it is. And we say that feminism is the problem. Putting the conversation where it needs to be, this is the Vanguard Report. So, today is Monday, February 23rd, 2015. Welcome to episode number 39 of the Vanguard Report. This is where we shine the laser beam of scrutiny upon feminism and very little else. Feminism and whatever leads into it or flows out of it and whatever pertains to it. This is not the men's rights movement. I repeat, this is not the men's rights movement. This is something new. This is something different. This is the let the oil out of feminism's crankcase movement. Our agenda is to do some damage to the thing known as feminism, to the point where feminism suffers mechanical failure. We are patient saboteurs, and we will stick to the job for as long as it takes, even if it takes more years than we will be upon this earth. But not to worry, for the activated non-feminist sector is legion. Feminism is conducting a war against half of the human race, the male half, and we figure that's not a very wise idea. After all, we do live in a social ecology, and so a war against half of the human race is bound to damage all of the human race. Yeah, that's right, men and women both. It quickly escalates and spreads, and it becomes a war against everything which is not feminist. That is why feminism must be put out of business for the good of humanity. So, I am your host, Phil Mogan, and Nick Redding, true son of the Alberta Prairie, is with us tonight as always. Nick, say hello to the people.
Hey everybody, I'm Nick Redding from Men's Rights Edmonton, otherwise known as Eric Tiberius Duckman. Please check out my website, mensrightsedmonton.com. Check out my YouTube channel, Men's Rights Edmonton, and follow us on Twitter at Men's Rights Ed. Everything that I do is to broadcast the fact that I am a men's rights activist. I am an anti-feminist and a men's rights activist working in Edmonton, Alberta, Canada. And if you are in Edmonton, Alberta, or if you know someone in Edmonton, Alberta who is interested in these things, please come my way or send your friends my way. That's all I got to say for now.
Yeah, thanks, Nick. You are anti-feminist, you are a men's rights activist. Some people think there's a contradiction between those two things. Personally, I can see no contradiction between those two things. But if it'll clarify the issue in anybody's mind, I will just say that I am not a men's rights activist. I don't give a rip about men's rights. I just want to do something about feminism. That way, I don't need to have that stupid conversation on the theme of, you don't really care about men. You're just anti-feminist. Well, all right. I give up. I'm just anti-feminist, and I don't really care about men. Now, would some of you people just shut up and go away? Sorry about that. Well, tonight we don't have any particular theme in view for the episode. We're just going to go through a bunch of links and items and things and goodies here and just sort of talk about them. So, with that in mind, let's get rolling here. The first one is link number 1, and I believe that's in your window somewhere, either on Google Hangouts or on ABFM, I forget which. This is link number 1. This is something that was placed in the Huffington Post of all places. This is something rather tabloidy for the Huffington Post. But anyway, here we go. Kelly Gissendaner's last meal request includes 2 Whoppers, fries, and a side of buttermilk. Okay, Kelly Gissendaner, I hope I pronounced that right. Kelly Gissendaner is a woman in Georgia, the first woman to be given the death sentence since 1945. The first woman scheduled to be executed in Georgia since 1945 placed an order for her last meal earlier this week, and it's a big one. Kelly Renee Gissendaner has been on death row since 2008 after being convicted of orchestrating a plot to murder her husband. She's set to die by lethal injection on February 25th. The Atlanta Journal-Constitution reports that Gissendaner ordered, here we go, cornbread, buttermilk, 2 Burger King Whoppers with cheese and all the trimmings, 2 large orders of French fries, cherry vanilla ice cream, popcorn, and lemonade. She also wants a salad with boiled eggs, tomatoes, bell peppers, onions, carrots, and cheese to be topped with Paul Newman buttermilk dressing. The Daily Mail estimates that the meal contains about 4,200 calories. Gissendaner's request bucks a recent trend by inmates facing execution. Recently, the AJC notes, male prisoners in her position have merely asked for the same meal that was being served to the other inmates, but not once did they eat what was brought to them. Inmates' final meal requests can get rather bizarre. Single olives, buckets of ice cream, gratuitous chicken and strawberry platters, so in that context, Gissendaner's last dinner isn't that out there. But all of what she ordered compared to a single olive, well, they're both pretty strange, but yeah, I don't know. In 1998, Gissendaner was convicted of convincing her boyfriend to murder her husband in order to collect on insurance policies. Her former boyfriend, who killed her husband by stabbing him and beating him, cooperated with prosecutors in exchange for a life sentence. Well, looks like the patriarchy let him off easy. He testified against Gissendaner and pleaded guilty. Wow. Interesting story. Well, I guess she likes to go out in style there. She's gonna save her life to the very last with cherry flavored ice cream and 2 orders of French fries and popcorn and lemonade. Guess she wants to go out with acid indigestion. Nick, what do you think about all that?
Well, I think, I saw on Facebook a little while ago, I didn't read the article, I just saw the headline. There was an inmate who was convicted of something horrible, probably murder, and he asked for a baby for his last meal.
A baby human.
Human, yes, a human infant. I'm going to assume for his last meal.
Did they serve him his last meal?
I doubt it. I doubt it. Something tells me that the state would not serve up a baby. Of course, there's various trad cons who would probably take issue with me saying that, but it's neither here nor there. What interests me is that did I get you right? Female death row inmates they typically ask for more elaborate last meals than male death row inmates.
I don't know if there's any difference between female and male there. I think in the article here they just say that there have been bizarre requests for last meals. They didn't break it down as to which sex. I thought the one about a single olive was rather curious.
Yeah, well, with bizarre, I don't really have anything gender specific to say about this, other than if I were to find myself on death row, I would definitely ask for some bizarre last meal that would leave people scratching their heads.
I don't know what I would order for my last meal if I were in that situation. I just can't say. Maybe I would have pastrami on rye. I don't know. Anyway, so this was published on the Huffington Post. This was the first woman executed in the state of Georgia since 1945. And I wish we had a feminist right here to give the feminist take on all of this. But anyway, I'm looking at her picture here. She's a pretty mean, sad-looking person, I gotta say. And she looks like the kind of person, judging by the padding on her face, the general balloon-like appearance of her face. She's a person who eats just in life the way she eats when she dies. Oh boy. Well, moving right along. Cue number 2. University of Michigan feminists harass Muslim who wrote political correctness satire. Okay, this is something a little more serious. Not that getting executed is not serious. A political conservative and a practicing Muslim at the University of Michigan has become the victim of a campaign of harassment by university feminists who are upset at him for having written for a school newspaper a satirical article slamming political correctness and trigger warnings. The student, Omar Mahmoud, wrote the op-ed titled "Do the Left Thing," a piece attacking the concept of trigger warnings and ridiculing the overly sensitive nature of minorities that see quote-unquote white privilege everywhere they look. Mahmoud's satire was written from the perspective of an aggrieved, left-handed person who saw slights perpetrated against him by every right-handed person he met. Saying the society needs to do the left thing, Mahmoud wrapped up his piece with the following satirical proclamation. No longer will I persevere in patience. No longer will I suffer in silence. I am a left-handed individual, and my humanity needs to be respected. The next time somebody tells you to do the right thing, turn around and flick them off with your left middle finger. But as soon as the piece was published in the Michigan Review, an unidentified staffer from the school's official paper, The Daily, claimed that she felt threatened by the op-ed and demanded that Mahmoud apologize for his piece. Mahmoud
Wait.
yeah.
An unidentified staffer felt offended. I am shocked to my very core that someone who refused to identify themselves used their being offended as something that actually means something. I'm sorry.
Well, what it says here is threatened.
Yeah.
That's there we go. That ought to ring a red buzzer in anybody's head when they feel threatened. It's threatened and they feel threatened. It's all about feels and it's all about being threatened because somebody wrote a rude article in the school newspaper. So I think we can mark this with the red flag of bullshit right off the bat with extreme prejudice. I feel good about doing that.
Hey, Fetal Bogan?
Yes.
Your audio is coming out really rough on the finished product, man.
Man, that's pretty harsh. How about right
Okay,
now?
whatever you just did right there, when you said, man, that's harsh, that sounded really clear.
Okay. I'll try to keep it that way. I'll do what I can.
But there is a considerable amount of static or scratching noise.
Okay. Got to get that ironed out. It's a technical problem on my end.
Here, I'll pick it up. Okay. Hold on a sec here. Let me repeat the last part. But as soon as the piece was published in the Michigan Review, an unidentified staffer from the school's official paper, The Daily, claimed that she felt threatened by the op-ed and demanded that Mahmoud apologize for his piece. Mahmoud refused that demand. Good on you, Mahmoud. Daily agitators, not to be confused with people who agitate daily, next found an obscure provision in their bylaws that maintained that no one could write for both the Daily and another paper. And since he had also written for their paper, they used the bylaw as a weapon to force Mahmoud to resign from the review. He refused that demand as well, but was summarily thrown off the paper's staff anyway. But that wasn't all. That wasn't all that befell this Muslim student. In a continuing campaign of harassment, feminists vandalized the door of his off-campus apartment with vile graffiti. Just give me a sec, everybody. With vile graffiti, and the door was also pelted with eggs. Mahmoud has since suffered a constant stream of threats against his personal safety from the women who claimed that they had felt threatened.
They felt threatened.
Yeah. The college. I mean, it's unreal. It's unreal. They threatened him. They actually threatened him because they felt threatened. Their feelings. Anyway, the article continues.
It's all too real, I'm afraid.
The College Fix, the school's conservative-themed paper, proclaimed the graffiti a hate crime, which I think is absurd. But anyway, I think it's just crimes. I don't think if it's motivated by hate, I don't see it.
I think it is motivated by hate, but I would take exception to the category of hate crime being used at all.
That's what I'm saying. Is it, typically if someone commits a crime against someone, it's because they hate them or their hate is somehow involved. Anyway, so the school proclaimed the graffiti a hate crime, and in its coverage detailed some of the vile epithets scribbled against him. In the graffiti, Mahmoud was called a dick, he was called scum, and he was told to shut the F up.
Excuse me here. Where have we heard the terms scum and shut the fuck up before?
The scum was from the young lady at the Warren Farrell protest.
You're scum. You're fucking scum.
Yeah.
Talking to that perfectly nice-looking young man there.
And of course, shut the F up was.
You know where that came from.
Well, I mean, it didn't originate with being read, but she certainly gave it new meaning.
She made it famous. She made that statement
iconic. The article continues. Security video of the incident shows that the vandalism was committed by 4 females dressed in hoodies to hide their identities. And I find that personally very interesting because I have been accused of hiding my identity despite the fact that I had a YouTube channel and I have walked down the street in a sandwich board that says mensrightsedmonton.com. And all of these accusations come from feminists. Anyway, as Reason.com's Robbie Soave wrote, the whole string of events is a sorry indictment of the rampant illiberalism of the modern, quote-unquote, liberal college campus, where writing something that offends someone else is considered threatening, but censorship, vandalism, and actual threats are not. Now, I am not a right-winger. I have had splits with certain people because of their dogmatic devotion to the right wing, but this is one of many instances where I can agree with specific right wingers. Take it away, Peter Logan.
We're going to talk about, well, not on this episode, but Nick, I know you've got plans to address the issue of the right wing here in the near future. Anyway, so this, by the way, this article is on Breitbart.com. Speaking of right wing, yes, I'm quoting an article from Breitbart.com. Ooh, I'm in trouble now with somebody. Okay, well, you know, gold is where you find it, and I found gold here. This sort of thing, what you read about in this article here, this is not freakish. This is not atypical. This is rather typical, unfortunately. I mean, we who study these things and have studied these things for years know very well just how typical all of this is. These are the kind of people we're dealing with. This is what feminists are like. They are, well, I can't sugarcoat this. They are a vicious pack of liars. James, how is my audio quality doing right now?
It's a little bit better, man. A little bit better.
Well, a little bit better. Okay.
I'm gonna be honest. I'm gonna be honest with you, Peter Book, and the audio quality has been cringeworthy the whole time. That's why I took over. But regardless, you're still getting through, and that's the important part.
All right.
This absolute insanity, this complete Orwellian, turning reality on its head. Going after someone for, first of all, using comedy. Secondly, going after, actually threatening him, actually damaging property, and making threats on his personal safety, which, let's all be honest with ourselves, they will never carry through with because they are all complete fucking cowards. But they're making threats on his personal safety because they felt threatened by a joke he told in a paper. What really interests me is that usually social justice warriors will bend over backwards to defend Islam in the face of actual extremist Muslims who are actually calling for caliphate and things like that. But here you got a guy who's by all indications does seem to be a moderate Muslim. He seems to be like a Muslim who's not interested in cutting off anybody's heads, but he's politically aligned and he has a sense of humor. My God, he has to be stopped.
Well, the feminists and the social justice warriors have an agenda other than social justice. That much is clear. Give them any kind of power in the world, and the final outcome will be something, well, I don't think recognizable as social justice. Well, maybe it's social justice, but it's some other kind of injustice. Well, whatever it is, I don't think it'll be pretty. All right. Moving right along. What's the next thing on our list? Cue number 3. Cue number 3. I believe this is another rape accusation or sexual allegation of some kind against a man. Ah, yes, here we go. This is on the website Pro Football Talk. Nate Allen incident highlights perils of new conduct policy. This is about the football player Nate Allen, soon to be free agent Eagles safety Nate Allen escaped charges on Monday after the 16-year-old who accused Allen of indecent exposure outside a Red Lobster began to tell inconsistent stories to police. Well, at least she didn't accuse him of rape, but she accused him of a sexual crime, which could be constructed as, I don't know, sexual assault maybe, although it's still not rape. But indecent exposure, would that be sexual assault? I think it might be. Well, that's what they do to inflate the rape statistics. They conflate it with sexual assault so that things like indecent exposure, groping, etc., become counted as rape. That's basically how they work, in case anybody doesn't know. After the 16-year-old who accused Allen of indecent exposure outside a Red Lobster began to tell inconsistent stories to police. Okay, inconsistent stories. Inconsistency is a pretty good earmark that a person is lying. They can't keep their story straight. And police are good at sorting out inconsistency in what people tell them. Inconsistent narratives. That's their job. That's what police work is all about. They do it all the time. They're good at it. Inconsistent stories to police. That's good news for Allen, but possibly bad news for the NFL's renewed zeal when it comes to policing the off-field lives of players. Now, all of this controversy is starting to blow up in the wake of the Ray Rice debacle. Hope Solo. Hope Solo just came to mind. They don't talk about Hope Solo because she's a woman, okay? False charges are made and not abandoned by a nervous teenager all the time. All the time, nervous teenagers make false charges. Yeah, I believe that. Currently working in the league office is a man who spent 5 years in jail for something he didn't do. You're not supposed to spend time in jail for something you don't do. You're supposed to spend time in jail for something you do. Well, generally speaking, unless it's a crime of omission, then it would be something you didn't do. But the point is, if you're going to go to jail, you're supposed to be guilty of something, guilty of a crime of some sort. It's just not part of the game plan to throw people in the lockup who have not committed any crime. And you need to be really careful about that. It's just not good to throw innocent people in jail. It happens too much, and you've got a social disaster on your hands that creates a lot of very angry people who have lost their whole sense of justice in the universe. And that's a bad state of mind to be in. It really is. A man who spent 5 years in jail for something he didn't do, thanks to a victim who told a lie that enough people believed. Nick, does this theme of people lying and other people believing them sound familiar to you?
Well, I think that's been the pattern throughout most of human history. People tell convincing lies, and it's pretty tragic that most people believe them. I don't know if there's any kind of specific instance I'm supposed to be reminded of.
Well, I mean, in connection with the kind of work that we do, dealing with people like feminists, the social justice warrior community, there is a pattern of lying, especially pathological. They've honed it to a fine edge. Those groups of people, they're really, really, really world-class masters at the art of lying and giving it a political spin.
If there's a way, I mean, the ultimate political spin is that you've got people coming right out and saying that that truth is determined by consensus, and that is straight out of 1984.
Meaning, if enough people agree that the sky is green, the sky is green.
Yeah, and that's what people rely on. These people will tell you they will stand with you in front of an orange wall and tell you that an orange wall is green. If you say no, it's orange, they will scream at you. Screaming at you isn't the only technique. They will also try to feign concern for your mental health and not understanding why this orange wall is in fact green. I mean, they will do absolutely anything but tell the fucking truth.
The question is now, do most of them even know the truth anymore?
Well, and this brings us to a philosophical quagmire. Exactly what is truth?
Of course.
And there really is no clear-cut answer for that.
Sometimes you can make a pretty darn good approximation, though.
Yeah, I'm pretty confident that I demonstrate truth and my opponent's deviance from it in my video.
Maybe it all comes down to who is the most flagrant liar.
And we all lie. Everybody lies. There's no doubt about that.
White lies, social lies, etc., etc. Anyway, currently working in the league office is a man who spent 5 years in jail for something he didn't do, thanks to a victim who told a lie that enough people believed. That's the risk the NFL has assumed with its new approach to players facing allegations of violent crime. Unlike the false rape accusations against Brian Banks, which prompted him to agree to a plea deal in lieu of risking a far longer sentence at trial, the vetting process that will make charges stick long enough to derail a player's career is a lot less strenuous, thanks to NFL's woefully misguided belief that benching a player with pay pending the resolution of his legal case doesn't amount to any type of discipline on the player. Boy, this is starting to sound a lot like, well, it's all of a pattern or all of a cloth with things like what happens to male students on campus. They go through these extra legal proceedings which wreck their life, even if it never gets into the legal realm. And then there is the matter of publishing the accused's name in the media, trial by media. Again, there is this pattern to just play fast and loose with the lives and the well-being of, well, purported malefactors, if said malefactors happen to be male. There really is a process. It seems to happen to men, more than it does to women. Not to say it never happens to women, but men seem to catch the worst of it. Whenever there's any bad stuff happening, it's men who seem to take the brunt of it, and it's people such as feminists who don't seem to notice that or don't seem to pay any particular mind or really care about it, which is interesting. You just got to put all these patterns together and see how it all stacks up, see how the dots connect with each other. This is the way you do it. Little by little, the knowledge, the realization builds up inside your head, and then you have that light bulb moment. Where was I here? Thanks to the NFL's woefully misguided belief that benching a player with pay pending the resolution of his legal case doesn't amount to any type of discipline on the player. Well, no, technically it's not discipline. He's not being disciplined. He's just being made to suffer. But no, that's not the same as discipline. Okay. And it does, and now all it takes is someone who has the desire to make trouble for the player and the ability to tell a persuasive lie with a straight face to create major problems. You know something, Nick? I know that if I were inclined to do so, I could tell a persuasive lie with a straight face. If I wanted to. If it came to that, and I were put in a situation where it would help me to tell a persuasive lie with a straight face, I know I could carry it off really, really well. And I know that I'm not unique in that respect. Plenty of people have this amazing talent to tell a persuasive lie with a straight face. It's not a rare thing. And there's no reason to believe that people with that talent don't get into a position, routinely get into a position where they're able to use that talent to hurt somebody else. And in the legal system, that is a field ripe with opportunity for people to exercise that particular talent. And I think we'd be fools to not realize that and to ignore that. Yeah, it's a problem. The ability to tell a persuasive lie with a straight face to create major problems and possibly to extract a major cash settlement, yes, follow the money, got to follow the money there, from a player. But as Panthers defensive end, Greg Hardy has learned, even a major cash settlement may not be enough. Woe to the vanquished. If it comes after testimony and other evidence has been generated to allow the NFL, under a far lower standard of proof, to determine that the guy did something he shouldn't have done, even if the allegations are false, which in turn creates an incentive for players to make major cash settlements as early in the process as possible, preferably before anyone even knows about the allegations. Whoa, boy. The possibilities for blackmail, the possibilities for extortion are multiplying here, typically targeting men. Interesting how that pattern seems to work out. I see this as a trend that will only grow in time. These sorts of situations, they will increase. You'll see them more and more. And yes, I blame feminism for it.
Well, coming back to what you were saying about your own ability to tell a convincing lie under the right circumstances, and how people who are also practiced in telling lies will situate themselves in. I mean, you are practiced in telling lies. I am practiced in telling lies. Everybody's pretty practiced in it. But people who are particularly reliant on that will situate themselves in positions of social authority, and you're saying that we can only expect more of this kind of nonsense is because these liars continue to situate themselves in positions of authority, and they will until the end of time.
Well, the point is nowadays they are being empowered to do this.
Well, you can read Shakespearean literature and conclude from that they've always been empowered to do so. You can look at the Bible. I mean, it's from 2,000 years ago. I mean, that's the latest edition.
There's nothing new under the sun. I mean, human nature is what it is, and it really doesn't change.
Liars and hypocrites always find their way to power, but it must be, and it always will be, opposed by people who call bullshit. If you see bullshit, you have to call it. Otherwise, these people will, and there have been instances. There have been instances where bullshit has just gone unopposed for so long.
Because people who call out bullshit fear for their lives.
Yeah, and you know what?
Sometimes it gets just that serious.
You know what? You're gonna die anyway. I'm pretty much banking on being killed by a feminist or having my reputation maligned to the point where I experience social death and then physical death. Nobody believes anything I say because I get called something absolutely horrific.
On no grounds whatsoever, more than likely.
On no grounds whatsoever, and because I've pissed off enough people by calling them on their bullshit, they are all perfectly willing to go, oh yeah, I always knew Nick Redding was a cannibal. Oh yeah, he sold heroin to school kids. Totally. It's very likely to happen, but you have to do it. I have to do it. You don't have to do it. I have to do it.
Well, a person in general has to do it.
No, they don't.
They don't have to.
That's why they go to the...
They don't have to.
Yeah.
But I think you are postulating some kind of imperative on some level.
Yeah. Well,
under certain conditions.
I've described personal experiences I've had, and I imagine the people who have I'm going to use the term oppressed. People who have oppressed me with lies have experienced the same type of bullshit that I have. They just made a different decision.
They felt maybe justified when they did it. When it happened to them, it was a crime, it was a sin, but then they felt justified somehow. When they do it, it's different.
Well, no, I mean I've also mistreated people myself. No one is without sin, and I may have told myself I was justified in doing it, but ultimately it was motivated by fear or selfishness or some other weakness.
And it's hard to know what that was. If you're not the person in question, if you're not there, you don't know what was in that person's thoughts.
No.
It's hard for somebody at a distance, looking at the surface of events, to know what was really happening beneath the surface.
So ultimately,
all these blanket ideological theories about sexism or structural oppression and so on are so very dangerous and dodgy.
So ultimately, it is important to me to defeat the lie rather than to defeat the person.
Well, by defeating the lie, you draw the fangs out of the pit bull, and the pit bull can go his way, and gum people from there on out. Anyway, I see the hours moving right along here. Where were we in the article? Which in turn creates even more of an incentive for someone to make false claims against the player, especially if the objective is simply to score a payday. Boy, don't the motivations multiply here. The NFL either doesn't understand this concept or regards it as an acceptable risk in light of the intense scrutiny the league has faced in the aftermath of the Ray Rice situation. Either way, the table has been set for NFL players to be set up. Well, folks, NFL players are men. I think almost 100% of them are men. And here is just another place where the tentacles of feminist innovation or the consequences of feminist innovation have slimed their way into yet another crevice of the cultural landscape. Yes, I blame this on feminism, and I don't have time to fully expand on why I say that, but I'm just going to say it because it needs to be said. And this kind of stuff happens all the time. All the time. It's not rare, and it's only going to get worse unless people start speaking up about it. And yes, I blame feminism for this. And I think blaming feminism and speaking up about feminism is a damn good thing to do. And what do we have next? This is from the Telegraph, the UK online Telegraph. Women voted 75 years before they were legally allowed to in 1918. Bet you didn't know that, did you? A new document has surfaced which shows British women of all classes voting in 1843. 1843, wow. Some 75 years before they received the parliamentary franchise in 1918. By the way, folks, this is... Oh, yeah, go ahead.
I wonder how long that was before all men got the right to vote.
Well, the funny thing is about all of this this voting business, men and women, the majority of men and women for the longest time couldn't vote. The franchise was extended gradually to people in the lower social orders as time went on, and it picked up steam during the 1800s. But what feminists and people like that don't like to tell you, don't like to be reminded of, and they don't like to remind you of this, is that really, for most of the time that women couldn't vote, most men couldn't vote. And there was just a brief historical lag between men being able to vote and women being able to vote. And the more you bring up these little factors, the more you erode the picture of women's oppression that feminism wants to paint for us. Yeah, Nick, you were going to say something.
Yeah, they generally hate nuance. When I was doing my research,
Nick, I got to object there. They love nuance if it's in their favor. Anyway.
Okay, fair enough. Touché, sir. When I was doing my research into the history of Canadian suffrage, I found that long before there was universal suffrage for all Canadian women, unmarried women in Ontario had the vote until they got married. When they got married, they lost the vote because
basically conceived of as something done by household.
Yes, exactly. So yeah, it's very so. In the case of suffrage, I maintain my position that feminists hate nuance. They want to see it as this is the time when men could vote, and I mean, even when you saw Karen talking with Cenk Uygur, he Cenk, the genius that he is, framed everything framed men. He framed it as men keeping the vote from women throughout history, which clearly lacks the nuance that, first of all, voting, voting, pretty much.
Was hardly even a thing prior to the year 1800, and even quite a bit after the year 1800. It only slowly became a thing.
So it had, I mean, even if you go back to the original Greek democracy, I mean, ancient Greece, I mean, that's when it was originally conceived of. If you go all the way from then to what we have now, I mean, it went through fluctuations and gradients and all these things. But go ahead, go ahead.
Oh, where was I going? Get back into the article here. Occasionally, just occasionally, you encounter a document that radically changes your view of the past. This happened to me very recently. The source was just a few scraps of parchment in a box of solicitor's papers in Litchfield, but at a stroke, it provided me with tangible proof that Victorian women were not only eligible to vote, but actually exercised that right some 75 years before they received the parliamentary franchise in 1918. The document in question was a poll book for the election to the local office of Assistant Overseer of the Poor in the parish of St. Chad's, Litchfield, in 1843. I was tipped off about its existence by a friend, Philip Salmon, of the History of Parliament. It was a schedule of voters, their addresses, the rates they paid, and how they voted. But as I looked down the list of names, some immediately jumped off the page. Elizabeth Shorthouse, Hannah Holloman, Phoebe Skelton, and Mallet. In all, there were 30 women playing an active role in the election. Although I knew that in theory women retained the right to vote for some local officials in the 19th century, I had never seen any evidence of them doing so in practice. This lack of evidence had led me and many other historians to assume that voting was entirely a male prerogative before the 20th century. Now, well, I've known for quite some time that that was not so. The record was compiled because the solicitors were the agents for the Conservative Party in Litchfield. The town was a highly marginal constituency in this period, so the party clearly wanted to keep tabs on the political temperature between parliamentary elections. The solicitor would have compiled the poll book from the ballot papers returned by the voters. In the period before the secret ballot, everyone was entitled to know how people voted. It was unusual to have an election for an assistant overseer. This was a powerful post responsible for collecting poor rates and deciding how they were allocated. But the overseers were usually appointed to avoid the expense of an election. All heads of household paying rates were entitled to vote. All heads of households paying rates were entitled to vote. Heads of households. This was a very wide franchise and one that included single and widowed women. If you were the head of a household and you happen to be female, in this particular context, yeah, you got the vote.
Also, I would like to throw in that from what I understand, women even in the 20th century in wartime, when their husbands, who would have had the household vote, were able to, or rather, when their husbands who would have had the vote were away at war, the women still had the vote in their husband's name.
Okay. Something a little bit of a tangent here, but I'd just love to throw this in. The idea that women could not own property, that applied only to married women. When women got married, they were covered by what was known as coverture, which is a practice in law, doctrine in law at that time, whereby husband and wife became a single person under law. Well, that's something feminists don't tell you about very much. If you're single or widowed, you were no longer covered under coverture, and you could own property, and you could run a business and do pretty much everything a man could do. All these little holes in the picture. Now, feminism wants you to think it was just uniformly a bleak state of bondage for women everywhere you look. And no, not true. Due to the higher rates that she paid, oh, wait a minute. Oh, I skipped this paragraph there. My assumption was that women, okay, here we go. This is good. My assumption was that the women would be of genteel status. But as I checked their names against the 1841 census return, I was surprised to see the diversity of the group of voters. There were a few women of independent means owning property and land. Yes, women could own property, owning property and land. There were also women, probably widows, who had inherited their husbands' businesses. So, for example, the wealthiest female elector on the roll was Grace Brown, a butcher. It's interesting. A woman butcher who managed a large household, including several servants. I presume she was a single woman. She ran a butcher business. She had a large household and a bunch of servants. Sounds like she ruled the roost all right, and she could vote. Due to the high rates that she paid, Grace was entitled to four votes in the election, which she cast in favor of the conservative candidate. But I was amazed to see many women on the list far lower down the social scale, including the laundress, Carolyn Edge, the servant, Sarah Payne, and even paupers, including Sarah Batkin of Stowe Street. A pauper. The poll book is all that remains of an unremarkable local parish election in a comfortable Midlands market town in the mid-19th century. Yet it has prompted a need to rewrite the history books by providing the first substantial proof that women were able to vote long before they received the parliamentary municipal franchise. And that is the article. Yeah, that's something we need to do. We need to start digging through history and rewriting history, or at least rewriting what someone else has rewritten in the first place.
Whoa! I will not advocate rewriting history.
I'm sorry, that was not a good choice of words on my part. Other people have rewritten history, and we need to rewrite what they wrote in order to have it written correctly, or at least as correctly as we can make it.
Well, my opinion. I mean, history. I mean, if a historian were to look over the records of what was said about me by newspaper and mainstream news sources, they would probably see quite a villain who hated women. Um, this is why, in my opinion, history.
According to the narrative that we have running nowadays, you do, Nick, and so do I.
Yeah,
We're
and
just cast into roles in a play.
so
Even if we
history.
don't read the right lines, they try to force us to read the right lines and then stay in character.
Folks, we are coming up on the wall of death. Like,
Thank
very
you,
quickly.
James. Thank you, James.
All right, one last
You got
point.
carried away there.
History, in my opinion, is like standing on wet sand. That's all I have to say.
Good. We'll think about that. Everybody, this has been episode number 39 of the Vanguard Report. We're up to the brick wall of death, so we're going to wrap up this episode. Everybody, it's been great. Remember, never forget, feminism is what we say it is. That's it. That's the law. Feminism is what we say it is. We'll see you next week for episode number 40. Everybody, have a good week.
All right, folks, coming up here in just a couple moments, we have Blue Collar Red Pill. All right, folks, next coming up is Blue Collar Red Pill. See you in about 30 seconds.